Good morning and welcome to the Higher Grounds podcast. Thank you for joining Brother Stephen, Brother Michael, and I today. We're looking forward to a good day here around the table discussing the subject of friendship, what the Bible has to say about friendship. And I am very thankful for the influential people God's put in my life as friends to help me along the way. This is an important part of not just the human experience, but a Christian experience to have brothers and sisters around you who you develop very wonderful friendships with. So you stay tuned today to the Higher Grounds podcast as we talk about friendship. Welcome back to the Higher Grounds podcast. Thank you for joining us today. Looking forward to a good day in the Lord around the discussion table. Hope you've downed a good pot of coffee today and got on about your day. Appreciate all of you. Often, a lot of you are coming on early in the morning to watch the episode, and we're very grateful for that. Pray for us in this new year that God would allow this little venture that the Lord's allowed the four of us, including Brother Matthew, who's not in front of the camera, behind the camera today, but he's an integral part of what we do here. And Miss Hannah Duffield, who is the post-production person for the podcast, does a tremendous job.
Absolutely.
We want you to pray for the five of us as we engage and endeavor to try to give you a resource of some good information week to week. But thank you for joining us today. Brother Steve, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Glad to be in studio.
And we're glad you're here.
Been chewing on the topic that we're going to be covering today, so excited about it.
Well, amen.
But I am glad to be in studio.
I wondered if you used the word chew because we're fixing to go to lunch here momentarily.
I cannot wait for some lunch.
And we're going to be eating lunch where?
At the smoke pit.
At the smoke pit.
Yes.
Chicken, that means
barbecue, all that good stuff. Now, for some of our, I don't know where you're from, but with smoke pit, where we're at means a barbecue restaurant. I don't know what you may call the smoke pit wherever you guys are.
Well, we're not talking to many people in Colorado.
Yeah, so anyway.
Goodness.
That's all make sure.
We're probably not going to talk to anybody in Colorado now. If we weren't one time, that's over with.
Well, they roll.
Just unliked our page.
They roll their smokes there, see. So
I see.
So we're not dealing with those people.
I got you.
Yeah, they won't even remember I said it.
That's a good way to look at it.
That's true. But we're going to be talking about some good things. But lunch is, if it's dead and it's red, we're eating it, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. We've given a lot of shameless plugs to the old smoke pit here in Monroe. And maybe
we want free food.
Well, I was getting ready to say, maybe if some of our listeners will start going in and saying, hey, we're here because we heard about you guys on the High Grounds podcast, we might get a discount. Can you ever tell?
Right. That's right.
Absolutely.
Brisket kicks my gout in, but I am actually feeling like I might even try some today.
Hey, I understand that.
That'd be good that we're leaving after he eats that in case he gets irritable with
smoked chicken, brisket, barbecue has no effect on me, so I'm trying it all.
Yeah. This is the trifecta.
He sure is.
I'm trying it all.
Yeah. So he's not even going after his head today. He's going after his waistline.
That's good news. It's okay.
At least he's changing.
It's all good. It's kind of apropos for the topic that we're discussing.
It's called a segue.
Who's got an afro?
It's called a
segue.
Oh,
it's necessary.
Not the little two-wheel thing you ride on.
No. It's how you go from one point to the next point in a smooth fashion. Tell us what the topic is today there, Brother Andrew.
Friend.
We're dealing with friendship today, but they knew that from the promo.
That's true. Yeah.
So we're dealing with the subject of the fact that Mike and I have really striven to be friends all these years.
It's been some strife.
But I love you.
Oh, I know you do.
I mean, I love you.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Like a bull.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to boil you. All right, go ahead. Well, Steve and I have been friends for a long time as well. Probably close to 20 years.
You've suffered through my inconsistency.
You're just so nice. Every time I get around you, I have a sugar attack and my diabetes level goes up every time I'm around the boy.
Yeah.
When I get around Mike, it levels me back out.
Yes, absolutely. Have that effect.
Very good balance.
That's
balance,
right.
Are we?
Well, the great and inimitable Muhammad Ali said, friendship is a hard thing to explain.
He's also the one that told Joe Louis he was ugly. Joe, you know you're ugly. Your mama know you're ugly. You look like a gorilla, Joe.
And he was saying that friendship was hard to explain.
How to be good friends.
Yeah.
That's messed up.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
It is.
Dennis Swanberg. You ever listen to Dennis Swanberg?
I don't think so.
He was a Southern Baptist preacher who does a lot of comedy stuff. And he said he was flying first class somewhere, and he said Muhammad Ali stepped on the plane, and he said I couldn't help it. I've done Muhammad Ali impressions for years, and he said, I do you. He said, you do me? He said, do it. And he said, for the next hour or so, he said, we sit there and I did Muhammad Ali impressions. He said, You good. I'd love to have been in on that.
Oh, yeah. That would have been good.
That'd been fun. Well, let's talk about that. Jesus talked about friendship. Mm-hmm. And he said, if you're gonna be my friends, it's going to be proven by the fact that you do what I say. Right. And
that's why we're not friends, and we never will be friends. We are a high level of acquaintance, and that's the end of that discussion right there. You can put that on the podcast. You can unedit that version. It ain't happening.
My mama said.
My mama said.
Now, because my mama said it is right.
Yeah,
my mama said you are now, or you soon will be who your friends are.
How about that?
That's right.
How about that?
That's right.
Boom.
I will not say anything.
Yeah, you are now.
About my present company, about what I will soon be.
Yeah.
Brother Michael?
Yes, sir?
In all seriousness.
Yes.
The Bible said a man that hath friends must show himself friendly.
Yes, sir.
And, we kid around, we joke around, and it is in all seriousness, kidding and joking around. But these two men and Brother Matthew behind the camera have been dear, close, personal friends to me. And we're on the phone all the time. Brother Mike and I are probably on the phone every day. I'd guess pretty close.
Pretty close.
And I'm very appreciative of him and Brother Steve and Brother Matt and what God has allowed in my life. Years ago, we were just talking about this. My dad was preaching a message in Kentucky. And he preached a message on give me my roses while I'm living. The whole message was about, expressing your appreciation to someone for them being who they are while they live instead of waiting until they're in a box and coming around their family and saying, boy, your dad was a great man. Well, the Lord strangely and uniquely pricked my heart with what the preacher had said. And I determined, this was many couple decades ago, I determined in my heart I was going to come home, I was going to up my cell phone plan at that time. That was back right when texting was first getting started. I was going to up my cell phone plan to the place and point where I was going to pay as much as I possibly could. There was no such thing as unlimited data back in those days. So I wanted to reach as many people as I could with the limited amount of data that I was able to purchase. And so I came back and just began to try to give a little quick call to a preacher and say, don't want you to call me back. I just want to leave a message, let you know I love you, praying for you today, and I appreciate you. And I began to do that and collect phone numbers and began to call men. And the next thing I know, I began to spend 8 hours plus a day on the phone with preachers who were now calling me, not me calling them, who were just starving for friendship and starving for conversation. And God launched my ministry of being a pastor to pastors out of the fact that I genuinely wanted to show my friendship and kindness that the Lord has shown to me to other people, and it blossomed into something bigger than I was.
Absolutely, and I don't want to put a negative spin on the subject matter today, but I do want to just kind of interject a little something I think would be profitable for some people to hear. It's not uncommon for us preachers, because of the nature of what we do, to unnaturally sometimes get ourselves isolated.
Sure.
And sometimes you get this feeling, nobody cares about me, nobody ever calls me, nobody ever... But here's what you got to understand. If the Bible teaches us that he that hath friends must show himself friendly, there's a responsibility that I have to hold in the amount of friendships that I keep active. In other words, it's as simple as me picking the phone up and making a phone call.
Sure.
And initiating something. You did that, and now you have more coming your way than you can ever keep up with. It's a sowing and reaping.
Right.
And honestly, I have as much active relationships with others today as I want based on my own effort. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
It's one of them deals where pay it forward, man. You know, I've never understood it in any realm, whether it be family, friends, anybody else, why someone would sit back and lament, nobody's reaching out to me. Well, are you reaching out?
That's right.
You know?
Oh, and you hear that often.
All the
as a
time.
Pastor,
Yeah.
You know, the church, you know, you have somebody leave the church, and the next thing they say, well, there's no love and no fellowship here.
Yeah.
I remember a guy that did that. I may have told this on the podcast years ago, but a year ago. But anyway, he was coming to our church here, and I remember sitting in that office just across the hall there talking to the guy. And he was leaving the church. I said, why are you leaving? He said, well, there's no love in this church. There's no fellowship in this church. And he said, this is just not a loving group of people. And I said, well, how would you know? Mm-hmm. I said, you show up after we've already started, and you're the first person to leave as soon as we say our final amen. How would you know we don't love each other, and how would you know we don't fellowship? You're not here.
Right.
And that's the attitude some folks take, and it's a cop-out.
It is a cop-out.
That's what it is.
And it's a personality deficiency.
No doubt.
In their own life and things like I don't want to when the Bible so clearly defines how friendships are formed and the value of them, I don't want to use my personality flaws as an excuse why I don't have them, number one, or number two, why I'm not enjoying the benefits of them.
Right.
Absolutely.
You know, speaking of benefits of friendship, you know, in Proverbs 27:17, the Bible makes this statement, iron sharpeneth iron, right? But in context, it's related to a specific relationship because he goes on to say this in that verse. So a man sharpeneth the countenance of his friend.
Yeah.
Now, it's a part of the banter or the fun of the podcast.
Sure.
Brother Andy and I are always kind of back and forth, boom, boom. And me receiving more than giving most of the time, right?
Yeah.
But I will
I
say
don't
this.
agree with that. But,
well, that's what others that have called in or texted or counseled you have said. So I'll say this.
Snowflake.
All jokes aside. One of the things that I have found valuable about friendships is having people in your life that will sharpen you.
Yeah.
Right.
Meaning this, I'm thankful that of the friendships that I have, I do have people like Brother Andy that if he's not afraid to disagree with me, he's not afraid to have a point of view that's contrary, or even to speak up at times in our friendship and say, Brother Mike, I think you're looking at that wrong.
Yeah.
I see that differently, or even here's where you're probably an error. That's very valuable because when you think about iron sharpening iron, the only way that happens in the physical realm is both pieces of metal, or at least one of them is heated, and the other strikes it. That's how iron is sharpened in the old ways of making tools or swords or whatever. And so with that being said, you always need those friends in your life that aren't afraid to challenge you.
Sure.
And I'm thankful that I have not just our friendship, but I have others like that where men challenge me.
Well, you have to have confidence in an individual before you can allow that into your life from them. You know, I've known of people that they believed they were sharpening their friend when in truth they were doing nothing more than criticizing them or trying to critique them without it being accepted. And you have to have in your friendship a desire to be bettered by it. You know, what was it you said that Miss Sue had said you are now, or
soon will be.
Therefore I don't need to be the smartest person in my group.
No, sir.
And I'm gonna be very frank when I make this statement here. Brother Mike has an intellect that's higher than mine. He is a very smart individual that I am not. You know, I have strengths in my life that he doesn't have. He has strengths in his life that I do not have, and we complement one another. And we banter back and forth that we were talking about, and I do the same with Steve. But when we're in private conversation, rarely do we ever have that kind of banter, back and forth. It's just what we do when we're not just here, but when we're in a group together, we do that. Poke back and forth, right? But it's the whole point is we're comfortable enough with one another because we realize the importance of what we mean to each other to be able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Paul mentions a lot of people in the minute. The Bible's full of relationships. Paul is often going through the text, and he's mentioning this person that helped him. He gets to 2 Timothy. We all know this. Demas hath forsaken me. Only Luke is with me. And he actually mentions more than just Demas of people that had done him wrong.
Titus was even included in that group.
Titus was in that list. And, so of men that maybe at one time, of course, he talks about Mark bringing. But when he begins the book of 2 Timothy, here's what he said. He said, greatly desiring to see thee, being mindful of that. He desired to be with him. He desired some of that fellowship.
Yeah.
There are missionaries on the field that would love to have the opportunity that we have
to
today
do this,
to get together.
To sit around, yes.
And to do. And so all the reason I'm mentioning that is that God puts people in our life. And I want to take full advantage of everything that God's given me to serve God. By me being with you all today, it's going to better me to serve God tomorrow.
Absolutely.
And it's not a selfish thing. It's I do want to draw from you and be, but I'm not using you. I want to draw from you. And at the same time, I want to turn that around, do the same for you.
The Higher Grounds podcast is a labor of love that we do together.
Yeah.
We come down, we record, we invest our time. But I'm going to say this, it's like Paul in Acts 27 when he was getting ready to take that Voyager journey. And the Bible's very clear that he was allowed to go unto his friends. He was given liberty to go unto his friends for this purpose, to refresh himself.
Yes.
Right.
And I'll say this, it's worth the 2-hour drive down to Monroe and the day of recording.
Absolutely.
Because when I leave our time together, I'm refreshed. We'll end this day with a meal together. We may talk shop ministry, we may not, but we'll fellowship. We'll have a good time, and I'll leave here with some wind in my sails.
Yep, absolutely.
And in that regard, to be able to be part of this is as much an asset to me as it is the labor we invest in.
That brings a great scale about. Are you surrounding yourself with the right kind of people?
Yes.
When you leave, you said, I feel like I have wind in my sails. Life is too short. There's too much to get done for you to leave a group of people and feel like you need to repent because all that group's done is talk about carnal and world, and they've ran everybody in the countryside.
Right.
Man, I ain't got time for that.
No, sir.
The illustration was given about soldiers in Vietnam.
Oh, yeah.
Having been buried up in foxholes. And because of the firefights that they were in, they found themselves isolated away from their brothers at arms. Mm-hmm. And after lengths of time, darkness setting in, they felt as if they were all alone by themselves. And the stir craziness of being in the dark, all alone by themselves, at least that was their presumption, they would get up and begin to run in a direction that eventually led to their demise, not knowing that just only a little bit away was one of their brothers at arms who was there with them, very close, but they were not in intimate conversation.
Wow.
And they immediately assumed they were all alone.
Wow.
And there's a lot of men who will rush to their demise because they feel like they're all alone, when truth is there's some folks that are willing to be there for them. Yeah. They just don't know they're there.
Yeah.
Therefore, it requires a reaching out.
Yes.
And, a man that hath friends must... He must show himself friendly. No one's just going to come to you and be friendly to you. The scriptural mandate is you must reach out first. You must be the one doing that.
Absolutely.
Years ago, I knew he's an older preacher now, but he had some friendships. Well, some preachers turned their back on him. And when they turned their back on him, they tried to ruin him by saying that he was doctrinally something that he wasn't. As a result of that, he came in and brought it all in, and it was just him and his four and no more, and no friends, no acquaintances, he would let no one get close to his life, no one. And it became sad to see. And I spoke to a preacher the other day on the phone, and I am probably one of the only friends that this man has. And I wouldn't even really consider myself a friend as much as a good acquaintance. Mm-hmm. But he has been so critical of anyone around him that no one wants anything to do with him.
Right.
No, I mean, they don't want to touch him because they're afraid of getting hurt if they get too close for him. Well, I've sat with him and I've watched him weep over the fact that he has no one in his life. And that weeping comes out of the fact that he hasn't taken seriously what being a true friend really is.
Absolutely.
And that's the thing too. I think as you get older in life and as you go through different seasons and stages, and I've heard this said before, but you start to realize it's true that at the end of your days, you'll have a lot of acquaintances.
Yeah.
But if a man can have on one hand a couple of real good friends, that it would not matter regardless of the situation.
Yeah.
If I needed this person, I could pick that phone up. They're going to drop what they're doing. If at all possible, they're going to come help me any way that is needed. That's a blessed man.
Yes.
I mean, or woman at the end of the day to be able to have that. And I think the whole purpose of this podcast was we wanted to speak to the hearts of those that listen, whether you're a layman in a church. If you're not alone.
No.
You may only be one reaching out of a conversation to the person 2 pews behind you to striking up what will begin a lifelong friendship.
Absolutely.
If you're in the ministry, you're not alone. There are people who are willing to take time, invest, get to know you, help bear your burdens, and grow something that can have some longevity to it.
Right.
I mean, you know what I'm saying? If you're in a youth group, we deal with a lot of young people in youth ministry, you're not alone.
Right.
And maybe everybody's not showing up because you don't feel like you're the coolest kid in the group, but hey, if you'll reach out, you may find somebody that'll
There's
reach
somebody
back.
out there.
There's somebody out
Right.
there.
Absolutely.
There really is.
Well, I think the social media craze and society that we live in now has put such a tainted view on friendship that it
True.
makes no sense. And there's such I've got a passel of friends, but there is such a disconnect. There's nothing personal. It's all
That's right.
in some kind of a artificial, digital, or text sort of a relationship, and that's not friendship.
No, sir.
And real true friendship is very important. Job said this. He said, all of my friends abhor me. And he was talking about Bildad, Zophar, and what was the other one's name?
Start with an S, I think.
Yeah. Who was it, Matthew?
There's 4 of them.
Bildad, Zophar, and
listen, don't care.
whoever those men were over in that book of Job. Anyway, Job said, all of my friends abhor me. Mm-hmm. But he still called them his friends.
Yep, that's right.
And in the last chapter 42, the Bible said that God turned the captivity of Job when Job prayed for his friends.
Yep.
Job's friends assumed things about him that weren't true.
Right. Yes.
Some of the things that they stated about him were true. Mm-hmm. They shouldn't have said it, but they were true.
They were true.
And yet at the same time, Job still did not discontinue his friendship with those men because they acted in ways they shouldn't.
You just brought up an aspect of friendship that I hadn't pondered as much. But when Jesus was talking about through prophecy what would happen to him in the future, it said that he would be wounded or was wounded in the house of his friends. Mm-hmm. He didn't say that because those people wounded him, they were his enemies.
That's right.
There is a level of maturity that you have to understand. I preach this to our church often. One of the greatest things you can ever come to the realization of is this, whether it be your marriage or your relationships, that number one, of course, I'm a sinner. I am friends with and even married to another sinner. You know what sinners do? They sin. They hurt each other.
Right.
Sometimes intentional, sometimes unintentional. But if every time someone steps on your toes a little bit or brushes up against you wrong, they become an enemy, you're going to find yourself with no friends. Because
It's gonna be a
people are
long
people.
life.
People
That's exactly
disappoint
right.
you. You know what I'm saying? They don't always do what you think they should do. But maturity says this. That doesn't make them a bad person. It doesn't make them my enemy.
Yeah.
Faithful are the wounds of who?
A friend.
A friend.
He's
You know what I'm
willing to
saying?
be truthful.
Yes, and so sometimes being wounded by someone close to you, if you have the right aspect, it doesn't mean that relationship has to end.
Right.
It can continue, and sometimes those are some of the best wounds because you learn.
Friendship is really all about my behavior
Yeah.
to the other person. Even Jesus in the book of Matthew looked at Judas and called Judas a friend.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
Very few people would be willing to do that.
Yes.
With
Yes.
someone like Judas. But you have to be in a friendship. It gets back to another episode we had on accountability. You can't be accountable with someone you're not a friend with.
Right.
That's right.
Friendship is an extremely important thing. The word friend and in the singular, friends in the plural, is used 102 times in your King James Bible. Mm-hmm. And that's an important thing for us to realize. The Lord's intent is for us to have relationships with those who are in the body of Christ and to have friends.
And let me say this too: some people get frustrated when friendships continually do not work out. But true friendship is not what I can get from you, but it's what I can give to you.
That's right.
Jesus
That's
called the
right.
disciples his friends, and at that time he was getting nothing from them.
Oh, yeah.
Even though he was training them for future, but he was giving everything to them. And so I think the way we need to look at friendships is not what can I get if I make a friendship here, but what can I give?
Right.
What are you willing to invest?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? If you get anything back, wonderful. If you don't, shouldn't matter. If you have the right mentality about friendship
And the right kind of friends.
Absolutely.
Because you have to consider over there with David's children, the Bible said that Amnon had a friend, and that friend was not a good one.
No.
Not a good one.
It was an acquaintance is all it was.
Yes.
They gave bad advice.
Right.
Yes.
Absolutely. So be choosy about the friends that you put in your life, but have some.
Absolutely.
You're going to need them. And can I say for you husbands, the best friends you ought to have on this side of glory ought to be your wife.
Absolutely.
And you wives, the best friends you ought to have on
Yes,
this side
sir.
of glory ought to be your husband.
Absolutely.
If you'll develop that kinship, that friendship between the two of you, that bond will be indissoluble.
Yep.
And I thank God for my wife, Miss Beverly.
too.
She's a precious lady. Well, we've reached the end of another podcast, and we could have Brother Stephen sing Why Can't We Be Friends? But we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that today. Well, there are other friendship songs that I won't mention either that we're not. I don't know where your friends are, but anyway, we're not going to talk about that. God bless you from the Higher Grounds Podcast.
Sorry.
Have a great day.